Well, 210 days and still counting. The federal government has asked courts to stop ASUU so that they can go back to class. Away from that, the Accountability Project, SERAP, and 5 other students actually filed a suit against the federal government. Although the government and ASUU will be heading to the industrial court. So many things to talk about concerning the ASUU strike. We have our guest this morning, Okungboa Peter. He's a public affairs analyst and an academic expert. Good morning, Mr. Peter.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mr. Peter.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll quickly start with this. The strike is over 6 months, and there have been a lot of back and forth. What's your take?
I want to first of all ask you a question. Should your child take you to court to perform your natural responsibility to that child?
That's abnormal.
Like the whole biological responsibilities of a father.
The reason I came up with that analogy is that if Nigeria was a responsible country, if we have responsible leadership, well, we don't need to be told that the only way Nigeria will make progress in every sphere of life is on the education sector.
Okay.
Now, I get the understanding that ASUU is fighting a cause at some point that are private and peculiar to them as members of the body. But if you look at the other issues they've been advancing to government, ASUU is on the moral path that they shouldn't even be on if the government was alive to our responsibility. Some of the issues ASUU had tabled is that the classrooms are not functional. The classrooms are not up to date. The laboratories are not up to date. And yet we're churning out graduates on a yearly basis. So what that goes to show is that Nigeria is not even producing the kind of graduate force that can effect a gargantuan change in the Nigerian economy, in all spheres of human endeavor.
Okay.
It will simply mean that even our medical colleges are not up to date. Even our engineering faculties, they're not up to date. So by extension, what is the intellectual capacity of the higher institutions in Nigeria? I heard one of the presidential aspirants made a statement that if he became president, he was going to hand over federal government to state governors, and I laughed because at state level, they're having problems with funding. Issues of education falls under the copyright list in the 1999 Constitution, but a responsible government should know that if Nigeria is going to have an academic policy, if Nigeria is going to have a philosophy underscoring our education sector, the state can hardly come in that sphere. So for me, is Nigeria even positioned to compete with other nations of the world in terms of its intellectual output? No. Even as we're saying that even the curriculum for running our universities have become obsolete. They need a overhauling of the education sector. So I think every Nigerian, even those who are primarily affected by the outcome of these striking actions, which is the students themselves, should be on the part of ASUU, should support ASUU. My business has been greatly impacted, but my business is all related to the school, the university environment. It's been greatly impacted. I think every one of us have paid sacrifice enough from February. But up to this point, this is not the time to give up on this fight. We should fight it to a logical conclusion and get the federal government to do the needful. Going to the industrial court as a way of chickening out of the process, because the reason for the industrial court action that they have instituted is to force the union to go back to classroom. When you force them to go back to classroom, the question is, have you taken care of the issues, not forgetting that these issues are not just new, they've been there. Successive governments have been abandoning it, they've not been doing much about it. Now, all of these issues that ASUU is talking about is finance related. Is the Nigerian government telling us that they are broke? We've heard cases of animals regurgitating monies that they swallowed, monkeys stealing monies. There's money. Even the recently repatriated fund from the Abacha loots can be dedicated to that. That would be a step in the right direction, telling us that if you are taking this step, it means that we can trust government to do the remainder. ASUU is not asking that everything should be done, but that the government should do something in the direction that would suggest that, come to think of it, I think the hard policy that the House of Assembly, the House of Reps, did kick against when a member of the House of Rep representing the Eastern part, Sergio Ogun, brought up, is now coming to the fore, where he adumbrated that officers of the public offices should have their children's school and should have medical attention here in Nigeria. It will simply mean that we need to ask a question, sir. Is there any member of the House of Assembly, Senate, and the executive arm whose children are in any of these public universities that have been striking for the past 7 months? You'll be amazed that not even one is in the public universities here.
Possibly we could have some.
The number will be so insignificant that it will pass for none. That it is a minister in Nigeria whose child is in any of the public university. If you bring up, if you ask them accountability, now tell us, where are your children schooling? You will see that I'm not saying completely that the number of, but when you want to look at the number of public officers whose children are here, the high-ranking officers whose children are here, the number will be as good as nothing compared to those whose children are out there abroad.
So are we saying compelling them to have their kids and their words attend public schools in Nigeria will go a long way to stop some of these issues has to do with strike and all that?
That was the philosophy underscoring the establishment of the NYSC by the Yakubu Gowon administration after the war. As part of his reconciliatory program, he thought it wise that if Nigeria was integrated in a forum where children from the northern extraction, from the southern extraction can interchange and be in different regions at a point in time serving their nation, I'll be careful prosecuting a war against the north, knowing that my children are there. The northern man will be careful prosecuting a war against me, knowing that his children are with me. I'm a school owner. My children are in my school. That is the first thing. That if the school is not good enough for my children, it's not good enough for those who want to come and patronize the school. So in the case of Nigeria, why are the school owners, the government, why are their children out there going to universities abroad when they have universities in Nigeria? It simply goes to show that they themselves are aware that the Nigerian university is nothing, it's next to nothing. So if you are aware that the Nigerian university is next to nothing, why not do something for the Nigerian people?
Well, now that, in fact, we must say that a lot of bodies, a lot of associations, a lot of, people have actually cried out, especially parents, in particular, have actually cried out, having their children at home and against others who are in other private universities, and, institutions also. Don't you think this is going to actually tell on the student? Because we really have to put them in what will I call, in consideration. Like the students are actually the worst hit in this whole situation as compared to their counterparts in other institutions.
That is very true. But you see, in a war situation, there must be casualties. Oscar Wilde did opine that the tree of liberty must be refreshed, not just by the bloods of patriots, not just by the bloods of tyrants, but of patriots as well. In a war situation like this is a war of attrition, if I put it that way. And in such a war of attrition, there must be casualties. It's only sad that the students who should be the future of this country are the worst hit in this. But again, we should be bothered that this graduate community, the graduate that will be churning out of this university system, have been next to nothing. Can Nigerian graduates compete with their counterparts in Ghana, South Africa?
Well, at least we've had students who have actually done the country proud in other places also. The
people who do Nigeria proud in other places, you recall that they had follow-up education abroad. They didn't completely finish here. If you finished here, you are a product of the environment. You cannot know more than the environment is willing to teach. Some people may, by reason of the dint of their hard work, go as far as research and all of that. But it's Nigerian educational system enabling the Nigerian graduates to say, I am a bona fide graduate, not just in character, in learning, and in productivity. A Nigerian trained microbiologist, I can assure you, does not know anything. Because microbiology as an enterprise is wider than we can ever engage.
I think anything is actually too much to describe.
When you go to our laboratories, for example, that will tell you the nature of the graduate that will produce in those departments. When you go there, you find that even the modern medium culture for culturing, the implement for culturing, is not in our laboratories. What is that going to tell you about the person who is out of that university? Nigerians knows they are very good at the received Eastern doctrine. They can be first-class graduates. And so when they find themselves abroad doing masters, they excel because theory now meets practicals. But back here in Nigeria, Theory is more emphasized than practicals, because our laboratories will be essentially where you now put the practicals to fall. And then again, if the practical aspect of learning has been something that has been reinvigorating the last 20 years in Nigeria, you'll be having outstanding research, groundbreaking research from our institutions. When was the last time you celebrated a research from any Nigerian tertiary institution in science, in engineering? But Nigerians could go abroad where the implements, where the machinery are, and be able to put to practice what they have learned and what their mind could conceive. My mind could conceive a lot. But you see, when the environment wherein I'm being educated is limiting me, I am going to function only within the sphere and the capacity of what's available to me. So I'm not writing out the Nigerian graduates as a non-entity. No, I'm saying, and this is not even my word, let me quote Obasanjo, that a Nigerian trained engineer, if you hire a Nigerian trained engineer, you're doing so at your own risk. That's because himself has seen it, that our institutions, what they produce, cannot compete in the foreign markets. Can you export a Nigerian engineer? Can you export a Nigerian doctor? Can you export a Nigerian nurse? Not to countries that are behind us, or countries that are above us. In fact, would you think the international community will want to accept a Nigerian trained doctor without retraining the doctor when he gets over there? If the medicine you've learned here is good enough.
At least they have something to start with. So are you saying totally we have an educational sector that is kind of not up to date?
Oh, that's essentially what it is. In the United Kingdom, we're all treating the same human beings globally. The human beings in Nigeria are the same human beings abroad. There is no difference in anatomy. Now, if a Nigerian certified doctor has to go abroad and practice in Canada or in the UK or in the US, and those who are there saying that you have not met our standard, come and learn again, that's because they know that what we have is not good enough. But the basics is good enough for them to improve on. So if they know that what we have is not good enough, it means that what we are giving to the Nigerian people is not good enough.
Okay, now let's come back now to the ASUU strike that is on. 5 students, alongside the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, they actually filed a suit against the federal government, against President Buhari himself. Now, what now happened? My concern now is these 5 students. What now happened to the National Association of Nigerian Students? Do we need to get only 5 representing the whole students in the nation? Do you think it's out of place?
Well, I think if you're bringing NAS into this, essentially NAS has been bastardized by politics. You know, the steps these 5 students are taking ought to be taken by NAS as a body. But NAS as a body has not been so unified over the years, and they've not fought for a common cause over the years. Politics have the way of splitting them asunder.
So don't you think this cause is something that should let them drop politics and unify?
Oh, what is the federal government trying to do with ASUU now? It's not politics. Have there not been ASUU members who have stood their ground that the federal government should do the needful? But the approach the federal government has taken, which is inviting all vice chancellors who are the head admins of the tertiary institution to a meeting, is to strong arm the teaching staff so that those ones can call their staff. And when they do make the call for you to return back to duty and you don't, they will know what no policy is another politics. So politics is a necessary part of all of these things. Good enough. Some 5 spirited students have taken it upon themselves to represent the National Association of Nigerian Students as a body and to represent the interests of Nigerian students nationwide as a body. That's good enough. Now the question is, what will be the outcome of these suits? Does the industrial court have the capacity to compel the federal government to do the needful? Morally speaking, they do. But politically speaking, I do not know, because the judges there at the industrial court have also been appointed by the federal government.
The federal government is the one taking ASUU now to industrial court.
Oh, the federal good. On what ground? That ASUU should go back to classroom. I'd like to know the outcome of that case eventually if it's instituted before the industrial court.
Okay.
Because you cannot compel me to go and work when you have not given me the tool to work. It's a moral issue here.
All right, we'll quickly give out the phone number now. The phone number is right now on your screen so that you can be part of the conversation. Matters arising, the lingering ASUU strike, over 210 days and still counting. Well, our students are still at home, and so many things to be worried about. The phone number.
All right, you want to contact us this morning to tell us your take on the issue. 0708 365 1327. 070 836 51320. I'll take the number again so we could get it correctly. 0708 365 1320.
Well, although the phone number is right on your screen, all right, so we'll be taking your reaction, but let's come back to you now. 6 months, 7 months, and still counting.
Yeah.
Now, don't you think, to an extent, this is going to affect the students?
In terms of academic output, certainly.
Yes.
Because over the years, we're used to the idea that when you give the human brain a 1 week break, it will go on a break for a month. That's why when you resume school, like school resumed today, it's going to take a while for you to get your academic form back. In terms of the higher institution, the students at the higher institution, it's going to impact on them very greatly because, one, the essence of being a university at that point is to find productivity, is to live a life on the basis of the knowledge I've acquired. And at this point in time, the reality of the job situation has another impact on them. A number of these students have gone into business, craft, trade. A number of them have taken to crime. A number of them have been submerged in a lot of waters. I know of a lady who got married because of the strike. She got married just when the strike started, and she put to bed very recently. And you expect that one to go back to academic form and get herself back as such. So the Nigerian, if we have a way of measuring academic outputs, the outcome of this, if school ever resume again, is going to tell negative on the national charts.
Again, are you saying they are not going back to
I do not think resumption is possible this year.
That's
I do not
quite
think so.
pessimistic.
We're looking, to be pessimistic about this, also to be realistic about this whole thing, because very soon we're getting to the elections. We have just days to the commencement of campaigns, and every minister, every government appointee is going back to their constituency to go and canvass votes for their party. Who is going to handle the ASUU issue when that time comes?
Okay, let's see if we can take calls now. All right, now, sadly, a lecturer lost his life. Is he a lecturer now? Or
I saw that.
Staff.
A non-academic staff.
Yeah.
Academic staff of the
University
of
Benin.
Benin.
It was a
So
suicide, actually.
Yeah.
Now, don't you think, to an extent, this no work, no pay has affected these striking lecturers?
Oh God, it has affected them in ways that you cannot completely comprehend, because a number of them weren't quite prepared for this. They thought, as a responsible government, these issues will be resolved quickly so they can go back to their life. And again, these lecturers have just one job. Their job is to teach the students. Any lecturer who has something else doing beside lecturing is probably the one living afloat the current situation. And it will also go to show that the lecturer has not been so dedicated. The ones that have been so dedicated, who haven't other source of income, have been having the worst hits. So some had to convert their private vehicles to Taxify, Uber, and as the case may be. Some are living presently on borrows. I've got some friends who reached out to me for borrow.
Hello, good morning, Paula. Hello, good morning. Yeah,
Good morning, we can hear you.
Just need to turn down the audio volume. Your television set, please. All right, I'm sure you turn down the audio volume on your TV set so that you can be part of the conversation. Let's get back to you.
The teaching staffs now are so indebted that the federal government has also looked into that. You know, what they are proposing, which is a 23.5 increment, is not really working because, one, these people have a responsibility to build this country from the classroom and from the laboratory. Those who sit in the House of Representatives and the House of Assembly, those who preside at the executive level, have you ever heard that there has been a reason for them to go on strike because they were not paid? These people are so selfish that they take care of themselves so they can take care of their own children. And they leave other people who are doing essential
National
duties.
Assembly staff have gone on strike.
Well, for reasons that are not connected to their pay.
Okay.
If it were connected to their pay, I'm sure heavens will fall.
All right, Peter, let's get to the phone line. Hello, caller. So I lost that call, right?
Okay.
Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
I think we're having issues with the volume of the TV set. It's only proper that you reduce the volume of your TV set because you cannot hear us and hear yourself.
Hello, good
at the
morning.
same time.
Are you there?
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
Wow.
Probably there's a hitch somewhere. Now, the civil service says you don't need to have a backup job as a civil servant. But don't you think at this point, this is where we are heading to? And if some of these striking lecturers end up getting something that they will be doing as an alternative, won't it affect their input as those who are saddled with the responsibility of training students?
Unless we get a government that is very visionary and purposeful, these issues will be a recurring decimal, and they are going to get worse. Because it seems that those who are in the helm of affairs don't see the need to school the Nigerian child properly. And if that doesn't become a matter of policy, then I think we're in the better days. The days ahead are quite gloomy. For the academic staff union, I would say kudos to them. They fought a good fight. From time immemorial, ASUU remained the only body that has been able to hold the federal government by the jugular to do the needful. To that end, they've lost members. I remember that it was on this same ASUU issue that the University of Benin lost their erudite scholar in the person of Professor Yayi, who had an accident along Kogi, Abuja way. And the academic union has paid the price so much that the Nigerian people should empathize with them at this point. And the extent to which they've come, this is not the time to faint, this is not the time to give up. It is a time to push to the very end, so the federal government will do the needful. I want to see what the industrial court has to say on this matter. Because if the industrial court compels the federal government to do the needful, and the federal government automatically now, from nowhere, bring out funds to start solving all of these issues, we'll now again have to ask the question, did ASUU have to go to the court to get you to do the right thing? And if that becomes the case, it goes again to show that what we've been saying is true. Those in the helm of affairs don't care about the academics of this country.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, let's see.
Let's see.
Have a call on the line. Hello, good morning, caller. Please, you need to turn down the audio volume on your TV set. All right, you can't hear yourself and hear us at the same time. It's practically impossible. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I think where we are missing it is you trying to leave your TV set on and trying to hear yourself.
Okay, so as an educationist, you know, and we, like I said before, the students still the ones in the middle, because when they say when two elephants fight to the ground, right, it will suffer. Now, as a student, what would you tell them to do? Well, I know it's 7 months. You know, what would you advise them to do at this time? You know,
never late than never. But those who started earlier have the advantage. Those who are about to get this NAP will start now. Now is the time for you to acquire a skill. I mean, if you started acquiring a skill since February till now, probably you would have earned a skill good enough for you to leverage on when you eventually graduate. And for the student community, this is also the reality facing you, that the emphasis on paper qualification wouldn't take you anywhere. So if you have not taken advantage of the time so far to learn a skill, I say go ahead and take the advantage to learn a skill, because I don't see this debacle resolve any moment from now until next year, except the industrial court gives the federal government an ultimatum and give them a time frame to bring to the fore these issues that they're asking them to do. Then on account of that, maybe ASUU will call of strike and you go back to the
don't you think ASUU should shift ground at this point?
No, at this point it would be stupid for ASUU to shift ground. They've gone all the way. Okay. They've thrown their last missile. They have nothing else to fall back on. And what they're advancing is moral, is good for the entire nation. ASUU should be praised. Members of that body, for all they've suffered, they should be encouraged by Nigerians. In the US, a military officer comes to a grocery store, a shopping mall, and when he's on his uniform or he has an ID card, he buys at a very reduced rate compared to you, because he is in service to the nation and he puts his life on the line. So for those people who have businesses, if you see any member of the university environment come around you, know that they are broke. And know that it will be magnanimous for you to sell for them or give them products at discounted rates so that they can keep on with their life, because they have the sole responsibility of taking care of our children, fine-tuning them into the men and women they should be tomorrow. And these people are hungry. It's not moral.
Okay, let's see if we can take calls now. Hello, good morning, caller. Good morning. Tell us your name and where you're calling from. Okay, we lost that there.
Okay.
All right. Okay, now you said they shouldn't shift ground.
No, at this point, there's
it's
no point
over 210 days the student needs to go back to school.
Of course, if the student needs to go back to school, should ASUU worry about that, or should the parent body, which is the federal government, worry more about that? For me, you're asking ASUU to go back to classroom when the tool to do their job has not been given to them. It's like sending me to a war front with a stick when the enemy I'm going to face is carrying a gun. Okay. The ASUU as a body is saying our labs are not equipped, our classrooms are not up to date, our books, our libraries are not up to date. These are questions, these are issues that should not even be raised if the federal government was even up to their responsibility. A competent inquiry body ought to have been set up to do a constant review of the Nigerian tertiary institution. That way, you will know that the federal government is interested in productivity, the quality of graduates that are to be churned out of these universities, not just churning them out every year, and you cannot measure the productivity of this country. It should bother the presidency that the graduate community itself cannot be called professionals in other spheres. For example, a Nigerian trained doctor can only do as much as he has been taught in a federal teaching hospital here. He can't do more than he has been taught. That's why Nigerian trained doctors, outside of tropical diseases and some other minor ones, can't do much. And diseases are taking very escalating dimension, now requiring machinery to be able to treat the human person. And the universities have done research enough to know that aspects of medicine needs to be dichotomatized and specialized in. Human kinetics, for example, other aspects of medicine. If you go to UBT, you have a whole new departments. If you go to University of Benin, you have lots of departments. These departments that have been established now can't work with the old system of theory. They need to be practicals involved in them.
We really want to take your view, all right, but we're having a challenge here. Most of you calling into the program, your television set is kind of causing a kind of distortion. But let's see if we can take calls now. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, tell us your name and where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Benin.
All right, go ahead and talk to us.
The case of ASUU has failed the Nigerian students. The students, they were supposed to protest their interests and the student at. I think the best thing for them to be treated as the students, the federal government, I expect them to prescribe ASUU so that the students can be in school.
All right. That's your opinion anyway. He's saying the federal government should prescribe ASUU.
Sure.
I wouldn't blame him. A number of parents are so used to the idea of get to the university, bring out a paper qualification or a certificate, but the end of that certification, which is productivity, is not much emphasized. And when it comes to the labor force, the employment, we find our ways around these things. The only one we find ourselves in Sena clan, where the writing is being required, that will not begin to look back, that would not be properly trained for XYZ, as it were. That parent is just an example of a Nigerian parent who is desirous of his child being engaged in learning, and there is nothing wrong with that. But what I want that parent to come to terms with is that your child is actually not learning good enough to say he or she is a professional in that field. For example, the business of training social workers or psychologists has gone beyond where our curriculum is. It's gone to the point where psychosomatic analysis and experimentation has come in. These departments are not equipped for such. So we're saying that with what we have, let us raise graduates good enough only for Nigerians. And these same graduates cannot stand the competition out there. The ASUU is saying that we deserve better than what we currently have. Why are you having cases of building collapsing in areas like Lagos and all whatnot? If the structural engineering of universities or polytechnics have been so worked on that for somebody to say is to be in charge of this building, that person has been well equipped enough for the job. Okay. And the person will need all that is required for that job to be done.
Right, let's get back to the phone. Hello, good morning, caller.
Good morning. My name is Courage. I'm calling from Country Road. Yeah.
All right, Courage, go ahead and talk to us.
Okay. When it comes to the government of the day, or the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, these people has no plans for Nigerians. I'll say this because when you calculate like 20 years ago till now, you realize that the higher institution has gone on strike up to like 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
If you are studying a 5-year course in the university, I'm sorry for that.
All right, we'll need to let you go. Okay, let's see if we can take one more, then we'll call it a wrap. Now, let's take your final thought on this subject matter.
Well, I can't wait for, since the matter is already before the industrial court, the federal government has dragged ASUU to the industrial court. I can't wait to hear the outcome. But in the final analysis, I do pity the education sector of this country. I became much more symptomatic to the issues in this education sector when I became a parent. I asked myself, is what we have good enough for my child? I like my child to be a professional so-called and actually knows the nitty-gritty of his or her practice. But is what we have good enough for these children? And the answer is no. And on that note, not until we have a purposeful government who would value education above everything else, this issue will be a recurring decimal, and today is just the better day. Tomorrow. So
are you giving up on the present government?
Oh, it's safe for me to give up on them so I can have my mental health, not to expect anything and be disappointed in the end.
Like you said, the association, the ASUU has done a lot. Like this is the last
yes, they've come to a point where they can't give up now. At this point in time, why would ASUU want to renege their position? Their position is noble. Their position is ethical. Their position is good for the country in its entirety. We're just going to pay a price for it. Unfortunately, the boy and the girl who is still in the university may not support this present stand of mind. But if they look at the general good that ASUU is advancing, they will support ASUU on this course.
Okay. Let's just see if we can take one more call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Yeah, I'm Patrick, and I'm calling from Benin. Incidentally, I'm just listening to the program, quite interesting. I want to thank the analyst for all they have done. You see, many people think that the ASUU members are not parents. For example, I lecture in University of Benin, and I have 2 children in the school. You know? And the third one was supposed to enter this April. So, most of those people talking like I parents, I read engineering. Today now, I know the state of engineering. You enter the lab, the equipment are broken down. They cannot be repaired. The equipment we have in the workshop, some of the equipment, they are old as 1973 when this school started.
Wow.
Okay.
What we are talking about is that those parents should come down to the school and see the facilities. They should come down to the classroom and see when students are learning. You know, you will pity the situation. Sometimes I pity my children. They are engaged in skill acquisition since February. So I told them that the way you can go is to go there to acquire skill. And I even told my children that they will not work for government. I have told them, I said, let me see that I'm the last person to work for government.
All right.
Many parents that are talking about children that they should come down to the school and see the facility. Come down to the hospital and see where children stay.
Okay.
You will pity those children.
Thank you so
So,
much.
my brother, I thank you very much for what you have done. You actually have given real analysis as it's supposed to be. But let people begin to talk. If I do come back.
Just to add to what he's saying,
okay.
As a school director, the Uniben staff whose children are in my school are in a deep mess now. Their parents can't pay school fees for them, as school just resumed today. A number of them have reached out to me since yesterday to say, on the basis of the reality that I'm aware of, what am I going to do for them? I have no choice.
What are you going to do for them?
Yes, I have no choice but to allow them pay when they are able to pay. If I have to hold my ground is simple. If you don't have the tuition, don't come in. Where will those children go? Their parents cannot even afford to take them to new schools, to another school if I send them away. They can't afford
to start fresh registration.
Yes, because these parents have not earned a farthing since February. And you don't think life is already hard on them. They are the heroes of this country today. Sir, I've been in the education space for the past 19 years. I can tell you there's hardly anything happening in that space. That space needs a new energy like they got in the Nigerian music industry, where we're now exporting music abroad, where our music is now doing well in other countries of the world.
Now recognized
that same sector needs to experience a drastic change like the Nollywood experienced many years back and has been able to sustain it today. That sector needs to experience a drastic change like the textile industry of Nigeria has also experienced. The education sector is far behind these industries I've mentioned.
Well, A lot to talk about, but this is how far we can go. Solomon, I know, is already standing by to take us through the breakfast sport segment. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter, for coming.
Thank you.
Despite the short notice, we sincerely appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, quickly take a short pause now as we join Solomon, I know.